get my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid, whatever the hell this channel's about. Today, this channel's about several things. A couple of really odd stories, one of which I think, well, more than one of which I think is potentially getting our channel censored. I'm going to explain what I mean as I tell you these stories. I know there are just simply certain things that you should not talk about on the internet, especially social media. I go out of my way not to be specific. I know certain, not so much words, but phrases consisting of certain words in combination, not to say. At times I am very vague. It is intentional because, well, let's just say that read between the lines. I'm not even going to be any more specific than that. Use your imagination, people. There have been some really odd things going on around here, but also around the world. And there's so many places we could point our fingers. We could say paranormal, supernatural, cryptids, or we could say government agencies. We could say cover-ups. We could say aliens even. And this is kind of part of the story of today, one of the stories. Listen, I've been trying to actually, somebody left, a viewer by the name of Dr. Robert Smith. If you're watching, I'm going to ask this again. Your comments have been being disappeared unless you're removing them, and I don't think that you have been. You've been very forthcoming with some information that you have been divulging here on our channel in the comments section. One of your comments, which was a reply to somebody else's comments, caught my eyes early this morning. I'd gone out and biked about 15 miles. It was my day off from running, so I don't take off days. I have what's called active rest days. So I didn't run today, but I went out and mountain biked 15 miles. A lot of times I'll go hiking with my wife and son, and we'll hike for a couple of hours. So yeah, it's an off day for me. Active rest day. I came back. It was still early, around 7:30. I got started early this morning to beat the heat, and I saw the comment. And it was lengthy, but I read it because it was being held for approval. And a lot of times, I have no say in this, folks. Listen, if you use foul language, if you use bad words, or if you're insulting, a lot of times YouTube will remove your comments and they'll suspend your ability to comment, not on just this channel, but other channels. So a lot of times, listen, I know you're going to bat for me and you're taking up for me. Like if you see somebody talking smack about me on another channel, you'll defend me. I appreciate that. But if you're insulting other people on any channel, you may be losing your ability to comment on all channels. So it's not worth it. Just ignore them. I appreciate it, but it's not worth it. And I'm like sitting in the middle of like a hatch of gnats. So forgive me for doing this. But I read the comment. It was lengthy. I think it may have been held, there was an F word in it, and so it was held for review for that. But I approved it despite that being there. Listen, I'm going to tell you again, mentioned this the other day in a video, when October Nights Part 2, 31 More Tales for the Halloween season comes out this fall, I will be reading those stories on this channel. There is going to be some foul language. I will do my best to remember to warn you before I sit and do the readings that language is going to be in there. So if you don't like hearing it, listen, if you don't like seeing it, hearing it, or reading it, do not buy my books, any of them, okay? The first couple I wrote, there's none of that in there, but those books aren't really very good, so I wouldn't recommend them anyway. But when I got real and started writing, the kind of dialogue that real people speak in real life, a lot of that language went in there. So I'll do my best to warn you so you can click away if you don't like to hear it. But don't listen to that stuff and then go into the comment section and say, OMG, I can't believe you said that word, or you used that phrase, or talked about such that thing, and here I thought you were a whatever, fill in the blank, religious faith goes. I've had people do that. Don't waste your time. It's only going to get you banned. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you've been a supportive viewer of this channel. Listen, I take several things in life seriously. My family, my health, my fitness, my conditioning, my businesses, and my writing. I am a real writer. And when I read those stories, I'm not going to do them the disservice of saying, oh, he said the F word, or oh, GD this. I'm going to read that stuff as written because those stories deserve to be heard the way they were written. Okay? Now, with that said, the comment from Dr. Robert Smith was held because of an F-bomb, but I approved it. It should have shown up. And unless I'm overlooking it, I really believe it's been removed, as well as a couple other comments. And I went back and asked this gentleman if he could leave this comment again on another video where he was commenting, and I still don't see it. Dr. Robert Smith, if you're watching, please go back and put that there. If it's still there and I've just missed it, copy it and paste it and put it on the bottom in the comment section of this very video, and I will pin it so other people can read it, because I was going to read it to everybody, but if you'll just copy it and paste it on here, I'll pin it so they can read it themselves, and maybe I'll come out and read it tomorrow. But basically, Dr. Smith thought he was seeing a gorilla or gorillas his senior year of college, like in his backyard or out in the woods behind his house or something. Well, he decided to go investigate and go follow this thing or these things into the forest, and he ended up finding what he says was an entire family of Bigfoot Sasquatches. Okay? And he didn't write tongue-in-cheek. This was all out true account according to him, and I have no reason to doubt him. And he mentioned about how difficult it was to hold that in his entire last year of college, because he was hoping to go to medical school, which he did. Now he's a doctor. But could you imagine, you're in your last year of college, hoping to go off to medical school. If you open your mouth about something like this, do you think any medical school in the world is going to accept you? Absolutely not. They're going to think you're nuts. They're going to try to send you to a psych ward. So anyway, there's that. And this comment just keeps disappearing. Okay, now I'm going to read you another story with a follow-up comment by another user. This is a story, I believe he or she, they didn't specify, and they use this moniker, this user ID, EC Canker. That's what it looks like, and said in the beginning, here's my crazy desert story. So that's how I titled it in the Word doc so I could print it off. I read this a couple of days ago, and I thought, I really need to take that on the channel and read that to the folks who watch this, because I absolutely believe this, because I had a very similar experience in Yakima, Washington, in the desert. That's high desert up there in Washington State. I was still in the service at the time, and I'm not going to tell this story yet. Certain people have to die before I ever tell that story. Unless, of course, if I cleverly disguise it as fiction in an upcoming work of short stories or even full-length novels. Certainly, if I knew the information behind the occurrence, it would be full-length novel worthy. But I don't have enough of that information. But I want to read you this, and then I want to tell you about the very strange thing that happened with the internet service in our entire house when I tried to follow up on some of this. It crashed. I mean, spoiler alert, too late. It crashed. Not only did my laptop crash, the internet in our house went out. All right, so tell you, this stuff's creepy. And you notice the birds and the cicadas just went silent for a second. So here we go. My scary desert story. And guys, I've been saying, if you have these stories, put them in the comment section. That's where I'm getting these from. But I am leaning towards, once I get this October Nights Part 2, edited enough to send off to my editor, guy in the Philippines better be drying out before I send him anything. Hint, hint, Truman Jackson, if you're watching. I think I am going to have to open an email address just for these stories, because we're getting censored. I mean, these things are getting erased, and my internet's crashing. And yes, I see that thing back there too. Keep your eyes on it and see if it moves. All right. Shoot, I thought I brought my Gatorade up, but I didn't. I think I just swallowed one of these gnats. Oh well, protein, right? My Scary Desert Story by E.C. Kanker, 2015, 7 years ago. I was in the southwest USA enjoying nice weather in the desert. I pulled up to a nice spot to hike and have a snack. Beautiful weather, nice breeze, no one around for miles and miles, yet I could clearly hear about 15 or 20 large trucks, like dump trucks and large backhoes struggling with heavy equipment. Beep, beep of trucks backing up, but there was nothing around for miles and miles. I drove around to see if I was missing some major construction, but nothing. No cars, no trucks, nothing but desert. I went back to the spot and there it was again. Lots of machinery at work. Dump trucks dumping and bouncing and bin like to get all dirt out loud. Okay, there was a typo. Sorry I didn't catch that. I don't know what you mean. They're bouncing and as if, I guess, like these dump trucks were trying to get all the dirt out. Oh, yeah, and then the bangs, like, you know, before they go down, okay? I got on my hands and knees and found that the digging was coming from under me, underground. So all these noises that this individual was hearing, that backing up of trucks, that banging, that clanging, was happening underground in the middle of the desert. Something's creeping up on us. Listen to this story. Those brown thrashers have gone silent. As I stood up, I saw before me 2 big white trucks with black windows facing me, shiny like right off the showroom, clean, no dust on them. I got a bit nervous and turned around to drive off and saw that 2 more of the same trucks were behind me, same kind of trucks. They just appeared from out of nowhere. Now I was scared. I got in my truck and drove off. It was a decent drive to the main road and I kept looking behind me. They weren't following me. When I finally got to the main road, there were 2 more trucks, just like the others, bright white, like right off the showroom floor. All the windows were tinted totally black. I got on the road and they took off after me. One right on my bumper and the other trying to pass me. I was going 90 miles an hour, swerving in both lanes. When I'd block the truck passing me, the one behind me tried to take me over. This went on for about 10 minutes until I saw a store off of an exit and I took that exit. The 2 trucks slowed down and did a U-turn and returned back from where they'd come. Why did they wait for me to get to the main road? They could have wiped me out in the desert and no one would find me. I was sure they'd come finish me off, but I had no other contact since. I'm thinking they wanted to scare me and they did. I've never even gone close to that location in the 7 years since then. Something big is being built underground and by someone very powerful. The government, with a question mark they wrote. A few years later, I saw a video of some van folks going to Area 51 in Nevada. They crossed the line and were approached by security in big white trucks, just like the ones that had chased me. Did I stumble onto Area 51 and a half? Those trucks literally came out of nowhere. They didn't have a speck of dust on them. Crazy. Folks, I have no reason to doubt this story. I have every reason to believe it. Now, there's a thread of comments continuing underneath this comment. I wish I could remember which video this appeared on. I should have written it down. And look at that. He, she, it, or they, which was up there when I started reading this, is now gone. And the thrashers, they didn't go quiet. They moved. They came down here to be close to me. They were back there. What was it that scared them out of there and brought them here? Okay, so the comments continued, and somebody asked this individual why they didn't disclose the location. Where is this place? Let us know where it is. Here's what E.C. Kanker commented back. Says, I'm keeping it under wrap. If it is a secret government compound, maybe for national defense, maybe it's best not to have the location disclosed. And I agree with that. You know, I do know as someone who had a security clearance, and I'll leave it at that. There are things our government does that's in our best interest not to know, that are in our best interest. Because, listen, people are nuts and we can't handle the truth. You remember War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Can't believe, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I finally got around to reading that novel last year for the first time ever. Listen, I'm a big fan of the classics, but there's just so daggone many of them, and I read half a dozen books a month. There's just so many of them out there. Sometimes it takes a while to get around to them. But you'll remember that Orson Welles, who became a big movie producer, and he had a radio show back in the 30s, I believe, 20s and 30s, decided on Halloween night, if I'm not mistaken, to kind of do like a radio play of that storyline of War of the Worlds. And here's the thing. He did announce that he was going to do it. There was such chaos that happened after he did this that he was actually subpoenaed to testify in front of Congress as far as why he did this. They thought he had intentionally caused riotous type actions among the people that actually caused, I think, 4 people died that night in car wreck. There were car wrecks, suicides. But basically, he went to a commercial break, and before the commercial break, he said, hey, you know, when we get back, I'm going to kind of do like a role play of the War of the Worlds here, just, you know, because it's Halloween. Well, people miss that part. You know, they came back from commercial, and this, of course, is back before television, or at least before every household in America had television. And they did this skit on the radio where they made it sound as if aliens had landed on a farm in New Jersey. Now, I know most of you watching this video have heard this because 70-some% of you are my age or older, but there's some Gen Zers out there who maybe never heard of this. So he's doing this skit on the air, live, and people think it's true. They don't realize that he's not, you know, kind of like retelling H.G. Wells' story, War of the Worlds. So people start going outside to see if they can see the aliens. People go out. Some of them started taking their high-powered rifles they used to deer hunt with, and they start shooting at water towers. Water towers that they knew were there, they see every day by the light of day, but at night, because of their fear and their panic taking over because of this story they're hearing on the radio, they think it's a giant Martian from outer space, and they start shooting the water tower. Folks were jumping in their cars trying to get the heck away from New Jersey, where this story was being said at the time, driving off as fast as they could, trying to save their own lives, and a lot of them ended up wrecking, and some of them died. And there were even, I think at least one and maybe more than one folks who made the choice to take their own lives because they didn't want to be abducted by these aliens and probed and all these things. So anyway, years later, a rumor came out that actually had been funded by a certain feller whose name I won't mention here because I don't want to rock any boats, if you know what I'm saying, because he wanted to know how people would react to such a threat. And according to that rumor, the reason his research was being funded and undertaken anyway is because the government was trying to figure out just how forthcoming can we be with our public before the public comes out and causes more harm to themselves than would have been brought to them by way of the actual threat in the first place. And I'm here to tell you folks, I completely understand that line of thinking because here's the thing about fear. It's not so much, it's like ghosts, the paranormal. Listen, you might not believe in this stuff and you might not believe what I'm going to tell you, but I'm a firm believer in the paranormal and I am a firm believer in this. They can't hurt you. They cannot hurt you. But what they can do is they can scare you enough to where you hurt yourself or to where you bring harm upon yourself or you hurt others. Sensitive information can do the same thing. That's all I'm going to say. All right? So anyway, back to the comment. So with that in mind, the person that left us this story said they didn't want to reveal that information as far as the location goes, just in case it is an issue of national security. And I can appreciate that. He says he did contact a certain UFO researcher. Now, here's where things get really hairy. I'm not going to say the name, and I'm going to tell you why. So he contacted this UFO researcher on his site, and he says he used to work for the government. So he says he would trust his judgment on maybe investigating the site or not. Said, he's not heard back from this researcher. And he says that if this researcher does follow back up with him, that they'll give the researcher the exact coordinates. I'd never heard of this researcher. So after I was finished reading this, I got another paragraph to go and we're done here. I Googled him, and instead of the Google search results coming up, my computer locked up and shut down, and the internet in our entire house went out. Coincidence? Maybe. I didn't Google him again once I finally got everything back up and running, because I've got work I'm working on, doing rewrites and edits for October Nights, 31 more tales for the Halloween season, part 2. By the way, if you haven't read part 1, we still have maybe a dozen or so paperback print copies here that you can get from our Etsy store. The link's in the description box below. I will autograph them and send them out to you with a really cool bookmark, or you can get them on Amazon and get them there in print or Kindle. So anyway, back to the comment. The viewer says, this could be a national defense site that needs to be secret. Again, kudos. It's just odd that a few months before discovering the digging sounds and being chased by the trucks, that I'd seen a tall, alien-looking being so close to that location. Why chase me and not them? Had I not seen that being, but only accidentally drove up onto the place where the digging was underground, got chased down the road, I just assume it was a government secret and never say a word about it. But now I question, is it government and aliens together? Should that make a difference to me? I've had 7 years thinking this over and over. My health is compromised, and it's been a concern that maybe this should or should not be followed up on. I'm not going back there. I responded to, and he mentions a guy again in his site, who ironically had a series that got shut down during the pandemic. I'm assuming he is still talking about the UFO researcher, is still keeping up with his email there, and he has a link to his site to contact him about sightings. I left my story there last week. I trust his decision. If he wants, I'll send him the coordinates and let him take it from there. So, folks, there's stuff going on. There's just stuff going on out there. And it seems to be going on not just there, but in a lot of places. Dr. Robert Smith, again, if you could please leave the comment I've referenced in the comment section of this video. I will pin it and let folks read it for themselves. And for those who don't like to read, I'll even come on here and make a video about it tomorrow or the next day. But he also, I remember he mentioned in that comment about how supposedly there's like satellite technology now that can look down and see through the canopies of the forest. And they're using this technology to track these things. And there was a lot more information than that. I don't want to quote it out of context or misquote it out of context, so I won't. But I want to thank each and every single one of you for being here. Take this to heart. Take it with a grain of salt if you're not into this kind of thing, if you don't believe it. Something worth thinking about. Stay hydrated in this heat. I'll see all of you for more next time.